This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. Shalom Aleichem. We continue in Sefer Devorah. We're in Parak Zayin, and we just discussed, we're discussing the Midah of Tiferes. And the Midah of Tiferes, the Devorah says, is primarily accomplished by involving oneself in learning Torah and Esek HaTorah. However, Devorah said that one has to be very careful not to be arrogant in their learning, otherwise it causes their learning the Torah to rise above and be elevated above this world. And the Devorah gave three primary ways that one has to be careful not to be misgaya. One should not be arrogant over their Talmidim. That causes Tiferes to be elevated above Netzach and Hoid. One should be careful not to be misgaya over a poor person. That causes Tiferes to be yisgaya on Yisoid, the Ani. And one should be not be misgaya over Amei Haaretz, because that will cause Tiferes to be elevated over Malchus. So the Devorah concludes Parak Zayin, Oid Yeh Rogel. One should also accustom oneself. When one converses and debates in Torah, lechavein al tikunei shchina, to rectify the rectification of the Shechina refers to Malchus. And to rectify the Shechina, lesakna, to correct her, ulakashta, and to beautify her, el ha-Tiferes, for Tiferes. Meaning when one learns and involves and discusses and argues in Torah, one should have in mind that by doing so they are rectifying the Shechina for Tiferes. Dahainu halacha elo emes. What does it mean to learn Lishma? Learning Lishma, the Devorah defines as learning Lamano emes. Machloikis l'shem, he says, v'zehu machloikis l'shem shamayim. This is a dispute for the sake of heaven. Dispute for the sake of heaven means a machloikis in halacha, to be able to know and to derive what is the correct practice in halacha. Dahainu chesed ugvura, that is kindness and might, which is Tiferes is called shamayim. The reason why Tiferes is called shamayim is because it encompasses eish and mayim. We know shamayim is made out of eish umayim. So eish is midas hagvura, and chesed is mayim, and Tiferes is when the two mix. Dahainu chesed gvura lavai el ha-Tiferes, to come to Tiferes, which is shamayim. When chesed and gevura come together, that produces shamayim, it produces Tiferes, lahaskim halacha imai. In order to decide that the halacha is in accordance with truth. Tiferes is also called emes. Like Yaakov Avinu was Tiferes, chesed and gvura make Tiferes, or midas ha'emes, which is the mix of the two. Now, sometimes a person gets involved in learning and arguing because sometimes it's enjoyable to argue. There are many people who are argumentative. They enjoy arguing. It gives them a kick. That has to be eliminated. If you're just arguing because you enjoy a challenging conversation or you're playing devil's advocate, that should be eliminated. So any dispute that is removed from this very straight and narrow line, yibado mimenu, you should separate from. Tiferes does not desire anything outside of this arena, afilu shia b'divrei Torah, even if it's in matters of Torah. Meaning one should debate Torah if it's for the sake of legitimately knowing the correct halacha, but not for another purpose. Imhu lekanter, but if it's to one-up someone else, if it's to demonstrate superiority or sharpness to someone else, soifa gehenim, that ends up in a very hot place. By the way, Gehenna is very hot. It's not comfortable. It's not like 79 degrees in Gehenna, even though it's much hotter than that. There is no dispute that will not cause a deficiency in Tiferes. Ella machloikes ha-Torah l'shem shamayim. The only machloikes that will not cause a deficiency in Tiferes is a dispute in Torah, because that kind of dispute is for the sake of heaven. Shekol nesivosei shalom. All the pathways of Torah, including machloikes in Torah, bring peace. V'yahava b'soifa, bring love in their end. So the machloikes, the concept of machloikes, is antithetical to Tiferes. Tiferes is emes, and Tiferes suffers from machloikes unless it's called unless it's a sincere machloikes to know what to do l'halacha. So that's another important facet when it comes to learning, which is connecting to the midah of Tiferes. One should make sure that debate is good to get to the truth, but not to just debate for the sake of it. V'ha'oichel hanois midivrei Torah. One who derives personal benefit from the words of Torah. That also causes a deficiency in Tiferes. Poigim b'midah hazoi shi kodesh. It causes a deficiency in this midah, which is holy. Umoitzia el divrei chayil, and it extricates the midah of Tiferes to a secular purpose. It withdraws it from holiness and it sticks it into the mundane. Rather, when one learns, one should learn to bring honor and pleasure to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One should be mechavein to be mahane HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know that Torah is the delight of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like it says in the Mishnah in Avos, Parag Vav, that one who learns Torah Lishma is misameach es hamakoim. And the Nefesh HaChaim writes in Shar Daled, Parak Yudaled, all the worlds and all the creations are all in great joy and ecstasy and in great light when they are in the vicinity of the Torah. And therefore it is very admirable for a person to learn not to bring oneself pleasure, not to derive pleasure in oneself, but rather to bring pleasure and happiness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One who learns to bring hana to God on high, ashrei chelkoi, fortunate is his share. V'ikar hakolhu, the main thing is, litzaref datoi, to purify your mind, b'mivchan hamachshava, by scrutinizing your thoughts, ulafashbesh ba'atzmai, and to investigate yourself, derech masa umatan, as if like you're in a debate. In other words, one should challenge oneself to make sure that his thought process is clean, pure, straight. Im yimtza shemetz ervas davar. If there should be found in it any semblance of impurity. Now, what does that mean? In any semblance of ervas davar. One would think this means improper thoughts. However, Rav Goldberg, in his commentary, by the way, Rav Goldberg, I believe, was just nominated as a member of the Moyetzes Gedolei HaTorah yesterday. And also in the Sefer Hakdamos U'Sha'arim, which I now actually have a copy of, they both say that when the Devorah says that one should test themselves, that they don't have a shemetz of erva in their thoughts, what that refers to is if somebody has crooked thinking. Now, crooked thinking is a person could be knowledgeable in Torah, but still not have the ability to think clearly. Thinking clearly can only be obtained and can only be honed in by studying Gemara regularly. When one learns Gemara with a Tosfos, it trains your mind to think clearly. One needs to test their thoughts, that their thought process is clear and straight. Because, says Rav Goldberg quotes from Rav Chaim Volozhiner in a letter that he wrote to his grandson, that the ikar is to cling to the straight path, to Svara Yeshara. What is Svara Yeshara? Svara Yeshara is shglat thinking, straight thinking. And even Torah thinking, which is not which is just to sharpen, but doesn't bring you to Amita shel Torah, one should forsake. Says Reb Chaim Volozhiner. He says all the Gedolei Rishonim and Achronim, they were only nishtabeach b'svara yeshara. Kol hayashar b'svara gadol mechaverai. U'la'olam yoideh la'emes. One should always admit to the truth. One should always admit when they're mistaken, because one wants to make sure that in Tiferes, Midas ha'emes, kedei sheyimatzei sham ha'Tiferes midas ha'emes, so that the midah of Tiferes is always in the context of truth, as definitional of Tiferes is the midah of emes. So these are two more ideas to bear in mind when acquiring the midah of Tiferes, namely, aside from not being arrogant, but one should be mechavein to be mesakein the Shechina, which is a result when one learns the Shem Shamayim, which means to learn in order to get to the proper halachic conclusion. Otherwise, if one gets involved in debate and not l'shem shamayim, it can be poigim in Tiferes. And likewise, one should not learn for personal pleasure, but rather to be mahaneh, legavaya, to mahaneh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and also to ensure that one's thinking is yashar, and always to be moideh ala emes. Be'ezus Hashem, tomorrow we will begin Parak Ches, how a person could train themselves in the following three midos: Netzach, Hoid, and Yisaid. Okay, wishing everyone a terrific day. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.